In 1954, an American invention made the front page of the New York Times, promising to harness what the paper called the almost limitless energy of the sun. 70 years later, the price of that same invention has crashed by more than 60% in just 2 years. For most of your life, solar panels have been the thing wealthy homeowners install to save the planet, and maybe break even in 20 years. That used to be true. The economics behind it don't work that way anymore, and almost nobody outside the industry has noticed. In the next 15 minutes, how an American invention ended up made almost entirely on the other side of the world, how its price collapsed harder than almost any material on Earth, the graveyard of companies that collapsed along the way, the real fight happening right now over who gets to sell it to you and why. Even with panels this cheap, your own electric bill probably hasn't moved. April 25, 1954, Murray Hill, New Jersey. 3 scientists at Bell Labs connect a handful of thin silicon strips, each about the size of a razor blade, to a simple ammeter. They flip on a lamp. The needle jumps. It's the first practical solar cell in history. The Times runs it on the front page the next day, calling it the start of harnessing the sun's energy for civilization. Bell Labs licenses the patent out. For decades, almost nobody outside a lab or a satellite program ever touches the technology again. That's because for the next 2 decades, solar cells had exactly one customer who could afford them: the space program. The cost per watt made no financial sense for anything on the ground, only for a spacecraft backed by a government budget with no other option. Their first real job was powering the American satellite Vanguard 1 in 1958. For most of the 20th century, that's where solar stayed: spacecraft, remote research stations, nowhere near your roof. Then leadership in actually manufacturing this American invention started changing hands fast. The U.S. led the world in installed solar capacity in 1992. Within 5 years, Japan had passed it. Within another 4, Germany had passed Japan. Germany's approach was called a feed-in tariff. The government guaranteed anyone with solar panels a fixed, above-market price for the electricity they generated, locked in for 20 years. It was expensive for German taxpayers, but it created a gold rush level of demand for panels almost overnight. And for a few years, German factories were the ones racing to keep up. 3 countries, 1 decade, and China wasn't even in the conversation yet. But Germany's win didn't last, and it didn't fade quietly. Qcells, the German company that became the world's single largest solar manufacturer by the mid-2000s, was reporting losses approaching €1 billion a year by 2012. It filed for bankruptcy that same year. It wasn't alone. Solon, Solar Millennium, Schouten Solar, once the largest module maker on the planet, Solar Hybrid, Oderson, and eventually Solar World itself, all collapsed within a few years of each other, all citing the same cause. They could not manufacture panels anywhere near as cheaply as the new Chinese competitors could. Germany had built the demand. It just couldn't keep the factories that met it. So why didn't Germany or the US just build their own competing mega-factories instead of losing them? Part of it was money. Matching Chinese-scale factories meant billions in upfront capital against razor-thin margins that made Western banks nervous. Part of it, according to commentators in the German press at the time, was strategy. European firms waited too long to specialize in higher-end, high-efficiency niches instead of trying to outproduce Chinese factories on raw volume, and paid for that hesitation with bankruptcy filings. Not every Western company folded, though. First Solar, based in the U.S., survived the entire era by refusing to compete on China's terms at all. Instead of the crystalline silicon technology Chinese factories were mass-producing, First Solar built its business around a different, thin-film technology and became the largest solar manufacturer still headquartered in America. It's a rare example of a company that looked at an industry-wide price war and simply chose not to fight it on the same battlefield. China's turn came later, and it came from manufacturing scale, not a lab breakthrough. Here's what that scale actually looks like on the ground. Raw quartz gets refined into polysilicon inside massive chemical plants. The polysilicon gets melted and grown into cylindrical ingots, then sliced into wafers thinner than a human hair. Each wafer gets treated, doped, and printed with a fine metal grid, turning it into a working solar cell. Rows of finished cells get soldered together, sandwiched between glass and a polymer backing, framed in aluminum, and rolled off the line ready to ship. Starting in the 2000s, Chinese companies poured money into every one of those unglamorous, capital-heavy steps at a scale nobody else wanted to match. Today, 4 Chinese companies, Jinko Solar, Longi, Trina Solar, and JA Solar, ship close to 60% of all solar panels sold on Earth between them. Jinko and Longi alone each ship somewhere between 80 and 90 gigawatts of panels a year individually, more capacity than entire countries had installed just years earlier. By the US government's own estimate, China now controls somewhere between 80 and 90% of the entire global solar supply chain. That manufacturing scale is exactly what crashed the price. In 2023, finished solar module prices fell by roughly half. They fell another 25% in 2024. Polysilicon, the raw material underneath the whole industry, dropped over 70% in 2023, then another 40% in 2024, an even steeper collapse than the panels built from it. And here's the twist. The fall was so steep that all 4 of those giant Chinese manufacturers posted financial losses in early 2025, even while shipping record volumes. This isn't even the first time this exact thing has happened. Back in 2013, Suntech, then the world's largest solar manufacturer, collapsed into bankruptcy after years of selling panels below cost to win market share. The same disease now visible in its 4 biggest successors. The solar industry has a habit of eating its own winners repeatedly on a roughly 10-year cycle. Here's where it gets interesting. The United States had already been taxing Chinese solar imports since 2012, back when anti-dumping duties were first placed on Chinese-made cells and panels. So some manufacturers found a workaround. Ship components to factories in Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia, and Thailand, finish the panels there, and export them to the United States labeled as Southeast Asian, not Chinese. Picture a shipping container coming into a United States port, paperwork stamped "Made in Vietnam." Customs has no easy way to tell, just from that label, whether the panel inside was actually built from scratch in a Vietnamese factory, or whether a Chinese company shipped over nearly all the components across the border and just finished the last assembly step there to dodge a tariff. That gap is exactly what investigators went looking for. The investigation took over a year. Commerce Department officials cross-referenced shipping records, corporate ownership structures, and production capacity data for each accused facility, comparing what a factory could plausibly produce on its own against what it was actually exporting. In April 2024, a coalition of American solar manufacturers asked the government to investigate. The Commerce Department did and confirmed it. Panels from specific companies across those 4 countries were substantially made with Chinese components, just relabeled along the way. For that specific group of relabeled shipments, the penalty came to anti-dumping and countervailing duties of up to 255%, a one-time enforcement number, not the general tariff rate everyone else pays. Separately, in 2024, the general tariff that applies broadly to Chinese-made solar cells and modules was doubled from 25% to 50%, with polysilicon and wafers getting their own fresh 50% tariff starting in 2025. 2 different numbers, 2 different purposes. 50% is the standing policy. 255% was a penalty for a specific group caught disguising their country of origin. The U.S. government's stated reason for the 50% tariff is straightforward. America's solar and battery storage sector employs over 260,000 people today, with new manufacturing plants opening in states like Georgia specifically to capture a slice of that industry. And without any tariffs, a lot of that manufacturing likely moves permanently to wherever production is cheapest. That's not a fringe argument. Whole regional economies in the U.S. are being built around it right now. At the same time, every dollar of that tariff is a dollar an American homeowner doesn't get to keep from the actual price of the panel. Both of those things are true, and they're in direct conflict with each other, which is exactly why this fight isn't over. So if the raw panels crashed in price this hard, why hasn't your own electric bill or your neighbor's solar quote dropped anywhere close to 60%? Because the panel is only one slice of what you're paying for. In the industry, this is called the soft cost problem. The panel itself, the actual hardware, is now the cheapest part of a home solar system by far. Labor, permits, inspections, the inverter and wiring, financing, and the tariffs on any imported components make up most of the rest of the bill, and none of those fell anywhere near as fast as the raw panel price did. Ask 5 different solar installers for a quote today, and the panels themselves will likely be the one-line item where they can barely compete with each other on price anymore, because that part of the cost has already been squeezed about as low as global manufacturing can take it. Everything else on that quote, the part installers can still negotiate, is where the real differences between them show up. A technology that got roughly 60% cheaper to manufacture can still show up on your driveway estimate looking almost exactly as expensive as it did 5 years ago. And if you don't own a roof at all, this still touches you. Cheaper solar and storage are a direct reason utility-scale power plants are getting built faster and cheaper across the country, which is part of what keeps a lid on the price of electricity itself, whether or not you ever install a single panel. This isn't only a story about panels on a roof either way. The same manufacturing scale that crashed solar prices is a big part of why home battery storage, the kind that keeps your lights on after the sun goes down, got dramatically cheaper too, on almost the same timeline and for almost the same reasons. That's not a small shift. For most of history, going fully off-grid meant either roughing it or spending a small fortune. The same economics that crashed the price of a panel on your roof are now crashing the price of the battery in your garage, at almost exactly the same pace. Cheap panels and cheap batteries together are quietly turning full energy independence for an ordinary house from a rich person's hobby into something closer to a normal purchase. An American lab built this technology in 1954 and handed the patent away almost as an afterthought. 3 different countries took turns leading the world in actually making it, and at least 8 major companies across 2 continents went bankrupt along the way before China ever fully took over the race. And today, the cheapest version of this technology in history exists at the exact same moment your own government is deciding how much of that discount you're actually allowed to keep. That fight isn't settled yet. Whichever way it goes will show up on your electric bill before it shows up in any headline.